Welcome to the Toe Business Podcast, your number one source for information on training, safety, business management, and everything in between. There's no business like toe business. Here's your hosts, Jeff and Brad.
Hey, you are listening to the Toe Business Podcast. This is show 45. We just took about a month-long break since the last episode. We do that a few times a year just to kind of regroup and get things in order and collect some ideas for some new shows. So hopefully these next 7 shows we put out will be interesting and informative. Brad, how you been?
Not bad. Been going through insurance renewal.
Awesome.
That's always, the second or third best time of the year, right behind the dentist and and the doctor visits and all of those types of things. But it's been good. We've got a good relationship with our friends at Wickert that have helped us through the whole thing, and I feel like we do pretty well. I know you've mentioned it in the past. Insurance is kind of out of hand in our industry, but you feel like you guys do a pretty good job of staying out in front of it and keeping your renewals down and taking the steps you need to. And I feel like we do the same thing. So it's not terrible. It's just a pain in the butt. The paperwork, the application, the stuff you have to do, the behind the scenes work, all that kind of junk, but not bad. It's a good time of year. We got football going on, playoff baseball going on. My Reds finally have done something with their life. They have not sucked all year. So that's been awesome. Other than that, that's about it right now. Not a whole lot going on in the towing industry. How about you?
Nah, it seems a little dead. I don't have to deal with my renewal really until after Christmas, so that's nice. In my head, it's always January 1st for a renewal a few months later. But probably what's most frustrating to me is I know we've got a great relationship with our current agent. He always treats us right. I feel he does a great job. But I have kind of a personal rule where, to keep him honest, I like to shop 2 other companies. And of course, as soon as January 1st rolls around, they all seem to keep track of when everybody's renewal is. So they come out of the woodwork.
Ring. Yep.
Yeah, they come out of the woodwork. Hey, I can give you such a better deal. We've got this new program. We're going to save you so much money. Just do me a favor, fill out this small packet of information. It's only 307 pages long. It'll only take you 3 weeks to gather the information you need for this. And then it's like, once you do all that, where'd they go? Where'd they go? And by that point, they've got a pretty good idea of what you've been paying and what your coverages are. And they I guess to our benefit, I think they realize that they can't beat our current deal. But at the same time, although doing all that seems kind of pointless each year, you can't just leave everything in the hands of one agent. You've got to do something to make sure they're staying honest and all that stuff. And not that I think our guy would never be, but there may be a sudden spike in rates on his end with the people available to him. And of course, it's always a nightmare dealing with there was a guy last year. His company wanted us to shop them a few years ago. And I told them right up front, I'm not going to change my agent of record because they all shop, 2-3 different places. And I'm not going to do that. If you can't give me a quote without doing that, then don't waste my time. No. We've got special ways of doing that. We can work around that. About a weekend of talking to them, they try slipping a damn form past you. Hey, do me a favor, just sign this. This will unlock blah, blah, blah information for you. And if you sit there and read it, they're trying to trick you into changing your agent of record, which is exactly what I told them I would not do. So last year, the same company, different guy, different agent for the same company comes along. He comes for a meeting. Okay, I'll talk to you. I tell him the same thing. He makes me the same promise. Well, guess what? He tries slipping the paper past me. In the meantime, he comes with the old agent that wasted my time 3 years ago. and they're sitting there talking, and out of nowhere, the other agent says, "Yeah, how about that trip program? You on that trip program?" I said, "Yeah, we're on it." I ain't never seen such a damn easy way to print yourself money in my life. I'm
Yeah,
like,
okay.
yeah, do you have any idea how expensive it is to comply with all that stuff and participate in that program? Well, no, but
And
I've seen some of the rec invoices. I was
well,
like,
yeah, on a high probability you're not going to get paid for that wreck.
yeah, that pissed me off. But I was like, all right, that's the other guy. I'm dealing with this guy. I'm gonna ignore that. Get me the to change my agent of record with the underwriters
Well,
there.
it's kind of like the uniform companies. I don't know if you
Yes.
have a uniform company. They show up. Hey, I just need you to sign this
Yeah.
quick survey. Yeah, right. It's the renewal. I know what that is, and it says at the bottom 5%, 10%, whatever it is, in the real fine print, and
Yeah.
it's going to go up 5% every year for the next 5 years till the next time you try to get me to sign this. No.
Yeah. So a couple weeks later, we're getting down to the wire, and I realized I've never gotten a quote from this guy. And I call him up. I said, what's going on? Well, if you're not going to sign the change of agent of record, I can't do anything for you. You son of a bitch. I spent how
is it
much
the
time
first?
dealing with you? I met with you twice. I told you right up front, day one, I'm not going to do that. Can you help me? You said you could. Now you tell me. Can't. I said, dude, you and your guy, just no. Don't come here again. Don't call me next season. Don't. I mean, just a complete waste of time. But
Yeah,
yeah,
why can everybody else? Why can everybody else do it and he can't?
yeah, yeah,
How are you
I
supposed to get a quote
yeah.
if you have to change your agent of record?
I think it probably came down to he couldn't keep all the promises he tried making in the beginning and knew it.
Yeah, we've been down that road, especially with some local agents that don't necessarily work in the towing space and don't really understand. They think they can write any kind of commercial risk policy.
Yep.
So
They don't even
the
know
first
what
couple I
on hook
humored.
coverage is. Yeah.
Yeah, I humored them and kind of went through the process with them, and every one of them threw the brakes on pretty fast. Like, whoa, no, this. I don't think we want this. Like, well, you probably don't. Yeah, that's why no one else is writing them. But you need somebody that specializes
Yeah.
in at least transportation, if not
Yes.
towing specifically. And there's good ones, and a lot of it's on you on your renewal, but there are good ones that fight for you. They get good rates that can keep that relationship, and there's nothing better than having a good relationship with your bank and a good relationship with your insurance agent, because
Yes.
those are both people that when you need something from them, it's probably pretty important.
Yeah. They kind of go hand in hand. I mean, they both our bank and our insurance agent, our renewal came up about a month or two into COVID. Both of them have just gone above and beyond to help us out through this thing. And really, I really honestly believe they're doing the best they can for us in this situation. And it's going great. As great as it could be right now in this wonderful 2020. But yeah, maybe we could talk a little more about uniform companies next time. How about their
fun? I've got some good stories.
Yeah. How what I love is the bait and switch. The salesman comes in, makes you all the promises, then you get the first time a button pops off or something tears, you ask your route guy, hey, this needs to be taken care of. Okay, well, I'll put a tag on it and they'll let you know what it's going to cost to fix that. Well, wait a minute, I was told this shit was covered for the life of the contract. No, well, then we hand something in. We were told that if we put a tag on an extra dirty piece of clothing, they will know to send that through their super duper wishy-washy process that'll get out any stain on the face of the planet. And then you say that to the route guy, hey, I need this run through that special wishy-washy super clean thing. Huh? What are you talking about? So we end up with a bunch of shitty looking uniforms for quite a while. And then we get rid of them.
With anything, you got to have a good relationship. We do now have a good relationship with our uniform provider.
Really?
We've been through a couple that were less than desirable, less than enjoyable experiences, I would say. But we have a good one now. We do have the high vis class 3, the bright yellow shirts that get super, super dirty. And we told them up front, say, hey, we're going to go through these things like nothing. We're going to wear these out, crawling under trucks, grease. I don't care what kind of machine you got. It's not going to get the grease out. So they cut us a good deal. We did basically the insurance on every uniform piece we get. So if it gets anything on it, it's gone. We get a brand new replacement for minimal cost per week. So those are good. Yeah, that could be a whole show. It might be kind of
We went the other
people, but it'd be fun because I don't like them.
Yeah, we went the other direction. We ended up purchasing everything now. New guy comes, we get him. We buy his uniforms. We we got all excited. We hooked up with this local apparel company. You give them your artwork, your logos, and everything, and then they give you a catalog, and they can actually set you up with your own online store for the apparel that you want available to your employees, and then your employees can log on. You can give them more or less a credit. You say, hey, Bob's got a $300 credit. Bob can go on and buy anything that you've got approved on the site with your logo on it. So if he wants to spend part of his credit and get a new winter jacket, he can do that. We got all excited. We decided to go to collared black and blue like polo shirts for everybody. And we got them, and the guys started wearing them, and everybody liked them. They're comfortable. They look really sharp. You don't look like a tow truck driver out there with these shirts on. They look good. The guys look good. And then we, after everybody gets those new uniforms, we go into Waffle House and sit down and realize that Waffle House is just gone with the exact same shirt. So now all our guys, we call them Waffle House employees.
Did you get them little paper hats?
No, but we should. We definitely should.
I'm a big Waffle House fan. So
yeah. So the only difference between their uniform and ours is our guys, the bottom 6 inches of their pants aren't all bleached out from them slopping that mop all over the floor behind the counter.
Who's got more grease on them?
Probably our guys. Probably our guys. We're going to talk about a few things. Some of them come directly from Facebook posts that we've been seeing. At least I've been seeing. I'm not sure if Brad can see them or not.
I am blackballed from a few groups on Facebook. I'm not allowed in a couple of them anymore. I've been let in a couple times and got removed pretty quickly again. So I probably have not seen these, but I probably have a good feel for what you're about to say.
Yeah. So I keep seeing over and over, and we mentioned in the last episode, I believe, we may do a whole show on this, but we're going to get into this a little bit. There are a lot of posts where a guy says, hey, I just bought my first truck. What should my rates be? Where do I get customers? All that stuff. And they're, what I don't understand is, these pages have search functions. There's no reason to ask the same damn question 3 times a day. Just scroll back a little bit or search. But what concerns me is people that are starting out, they're doing step 3 where step 1 should be and all that stuff. I mean, these guys are buying trucks, and you got to assume it's an investment. I mean, even if it's a $5,000 truck, for someone, that's probably a huge investment, and they've got all these hopes and dreams. And I'd like to see everybody doing a little more homework before they go buy that first truck. Why are you asking social media what your rates should be? I saw one yesterday, and it broke my heart to see. It said, hey, just got my first truck. I'm thinking my rates should be 65 hook and $2 a mile. What do you guys think? You're sitting there going, is this a joke, man? I don't think we've done $2 a mile since maybe 2005. And that was a motor club mileage rate. That wasn't even our private rates. I think you'd have to go back very early 2000s to hit $2 a mile here in the Atlanta area. And here we are in 2020 with these crazy insurance rates, and it $2 a mile. What do you think it's costing you to run? If you think you can run $2 a mile, now I'll cut a little slack. It didn't say whether that was just loaded or round trip. He's a little closer to the getting in the game if he's charging round trip. But the industry standard, I believe, is just loaded miles.
Still, I mean, you're asking people that know nothing about your business.
Yep.
Where you are. Trust me, prices are much different in San Francisco than they are in Mississippi or wherever. It's just so much that goes into it. We don't know what kind of truck you bought, how you paid for it, what your insurance costs are, what you're paying yourself, what your overhead is, if you're leasing property, yada, yada, yada.
Yep.
And most of these people don't know shit anyway because they're asking the same questions. Just scroll down and you'll see it. But, man, I applaud everybody for going into business, being an entrepreneur,
yep.
American dream. I applaud all that. I've done it. It's awesome. It's very liberating working for yourself. But, man, you should have some of this stuff hammered out before. Obviously, I would imagine this person has worked, or these people that ask this question. I don't want to single out one person. If you're asking that question, you bought a truck, you've probably been in the industry. I would think you've worked for someone, you've ran a truck. You're not just blindly jumping into towing, as attractive as it is to most people. So you should know what was your old employer charging? That should at least give you an idea, not just pulling out of my ass here, 65. Yeah. Rolling the dice and seeing what numbers come up, and that's what you charge. That you at least have an idea. You can ask, like, hey, here's my situation. I still don't believe going to Facebook is the best route anyway. You should have a peer group. You should have some mentors. You should have some people in the industry that help you. Trust me, they're there. But you should at least have an idea. Hey, I'm in Northern California. I run these kind of trucks. I have 2 employees, blah, blah, blah. I'm thinking that this is a reasonable rate because of, and then you list some reasons, your costs, whatever, however you came up with that. Don't just blindly throw out a number. Man, you got a long way to go. You're destined to have some bumpy roads ahead.
Yeah, we feel we get pretty decent rates, especially for this area. We feel good about our rates. We know they're profitable. We're making the markup that we desire. And we had a company owner here from the Northwest United States. And when we mentioned our rates, he's like, "What? You're running that cheap?" It's like, yeah, and then we start running through some of our costs and how they differ from his. And all of a sudden everything was right back in perspective again. The margins were pretty close, even though our rates on the surface were less. So think about how big and varied the audience is on Facebook. Just to say what should my rates be is kind of short-sighted.
I guess I'll give you some credit for trying to figure it out, asking a question, I guess, and not. But man, I guarantee you didn't get any useful feedback.
No, because everybody's going to tell you, not everybody, but 90% of the people on Facebook are going to say, well, I get 300 hook and $50 a mile, and every tow I do is 30 miles long. You're not going to get good information. Now, I would be a lot more impressed if I saw someone come on and say, is there a formula? What formula should I be using to figure out what I need to be charging? I'm thinking about buying a truck, and I want to see if it's feasible. So how do I go about that? If they're asking for actual real information to figure out what their situation should be, I'd be impressed. So if you're listening and you're thinking of posting what should my rates be, please put a little more thought into it, or maybe stay off Facebook altogether and take some business classes or whatever's available to you in your area.
You'd be much better off reaching out one-on-one to a well-respected person in the industry. You'd be surprised how much people will help you. Yeah. Now, maybe not the guy in your hometown. He might not help you as much, but there's so many good resources out there. People, they're not hard to find. Don't be afraid to ask one-on-one question that somebody might actually be able to help you and invest a little bit of time and effort into helping you.
It's not unusual for me to receive a call from a guy in Texas or a guy in Utah or Colorado, and just ask questions as another tow company owner. There's no worry there. They're not about to pack up and move to Atlanta, I don't think. And if they do, they're going to have a hard go of it the first few years, if they're successful at all. So there's no, I think if you share info and you help that person, I think you're helping the entire industry, which includes yourself.
Yeah, I've got a group of probably 15 people that I talk to. I'm not going to say every day, but every couple months. Just a question. We had a question come up about a new policy in our handbook. And we started thinking about it, how we wanted to word it, what the criteria was going to be. Like, well, let me just ask a few guys what they're doing. Maybe they already have it figured out. And lo and behold, they did. Pretty much copy and paste almost. Tweaked it a little bit to our company specifically, and it was ready to go. Save yourself a lot of time and effort trying to reinvent the wheel when all that information is already out there to some good people in this industry that'll help you.
Yeah, and it's kind of like what your parents tell you when you're little. You are the company you keep, and the reason I mention that is, if you've got one truck and you're trying to figure out how to get to 5 trucks, don't call another guy with one truck and ask him these questions. Call a person that you want to be like. Call a company with 10, 15, 20 trucks, because they're going to have a much better perspective on how to get to that level than the guy that's still at the same place. It's not saying that other guy doesn't have valuable information, but if you want to start thinking like and being like that larger company, then you should be going to that larger companies for your information. It's just, don't dress for the job you're applying for, dress for the job you want. It applies to a lot of things. And I hate those cliches, but anyhow, sometimes they do apply.
We had one guy come in for an interview in a shirt and tie once. That was different. So I'm not sure what job he thought he was dressing for that he wanted. But,
yours.
We hired him. He's a good employee. It's a good story. We only had the one person that's done that in my 14 years. But yeah, don't be afraid to reach out to, like you said, the people that you want to be like, or the people that you kind of want to mold or build your business like. I promise you might find one. If you reach out to 10, you might find one that's an asshole and just doesn't give you the time of day. But I guarantee you'd be surprised. I get excited when people call and ask for a suggestion or help, people that want to build their business. I kind of put everything else on hold and I help them and go through and work with them and open their eyes maybe to a few things. And I guarantee you, I learn a little bit too.
Yeah. So yesterday, I think it was yesterday, I see a post about, hey, what's everybody using for their paper tickets? Do you just get them from Walmart, the blank ones from Walmart like I do? And I really expected people to jump on and go, what? Paper? Walmart? Blank? What are you talking about? But instead, there were people saying, yeah, that's what we do. That's the way to go, man. Cheapest way to get a ticket, fill out an invoice. Yeah. Come on. If you're stuck on the whole paper ticket thing, I despise them. If you're stuck on paper tickets, some people are just more comfortable with it. So I'm not drawing any judgment there, other than your image. Everybody's expecting an electronic means of invoicing these days. Nobody wants things mailed or faxed anymore. So if you're using a paper ticket, you're using paper ticket. At the very least, if you want to make a good showing, you're having to scan these things now, which takes time, obviously. You're paying for paper tickets. You're throwing them away eventually, or you're putting them in a filing box to sit out in a storage container for the next 10 years, versus just having them on the cloud, always accessible, easily searchable. But if you're married to this paper ticket thing, blank ones from Walmart, no. Go to a printer. Have your logo put on it, your phone number, have at least the header of that ticket look professional. All right. Then from there on down to the bottom, how that thing looks is going to be dependent on how well you write, how well you spell. At least if you're doing an electronic ticket, at least you've got Grammarly and spell check available to you. You look a little better. I try to spell things correctly and word things correctly. I'm not great at it. Thankfully, Grammarly, spell check, they help me out. My sister, who is educated, loves to smash me when she sees me misspell something. But, she's having fun with it, smashing me. I've got a childhood friend. She always lets me know that I misspelled something somewhere too. They both love to beat me up over it. But man, when you're writing tickets, when you have to handwrite things, how legible is your handwriting? Can the people even read what you're writing? How did you spell things? Because that's kind of a reflection on your professionalism. I always feel like I'm that guy when we were still on paper tickets. If you're doing a call for Coke, I don't think Coke should be on the top of the ticket as the customer. I think Coca-Cola should be on there. I think you should show the respect to your customer of putting their proper name at the top of it. And there's a lot of them.
What about CC?
Oh, that's great. Yeah,
CC.
Coca-Cola. Because we have no idea. Yeah, we know exactly who CC is every time. So there's just so many more ways to go wrong when you're filling out a paper ticket. But gosh, not blank ones from Office Depot or Walmart. That's not the way to go. If you have to write somebody a cheesy little receipt for something you sold on Facebook Marketplace, yeah, you might be able to just scratch out a ticket like that. But if you're in business, you should have printed tickets if you're going to stay stuck on that paper route.
Yeah, I would say I'm surprised by that post and the reaction, but I'm not, because I see these receipts all the time. We pick up cars or even tractor trailers, whatever, that were impounded somewhere else, and we pick up and get a receipt, and I see these things come through. It's kind of baffling. I think one thing that bothers me though is a lot of times we'll show up to pick up, a wrecked vehicle, and they start writing the ticket out right then. What? Why are you just now writing it out? Did the price change today from yesterday? So I think that's some of the thought process behind the paper tickets. I think there's still a lot of that pencil whipping going on.
Yep.
But that's probably a different topic. But yeah, at least have some decent, if you're going to do paper, at least have some decent invoices that people can understand, and make sure your drivers take some time and pride to write them out thoroughly, legibly, so at least they can read them.
Yeah, and also, I mean, think about if you're dealing with police departments, it's pretty common for them to need to get a hold of your invoice for something. Call you up, they need some info on that vehicle that maybe they missed or they don't have. And to be able to, within a couple minutes, email them an electronic ticket with the VIN number decoded on it. That's another benefit of the electronic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Put that VIN in, decode. That's a good way to know if you got the VIN correct. If it decodes and populates all those fields, and wait a minute, this wasn't a Freightliner, it was a Mack. It's time to go down. And if you're processing vehicles with your state, like we have to for the abandoned vehicle process, you can end up in a world of hurt by processing a vehicle with the VIN number written down incorrectly. You're processing the wrong vehicle. And like in a lot of states, I know if you don't follow that abandoned vehicle notification process properly, and the people come back 3-4 months from now and want their vehicle, if they know that little glitch occurred, you can't charge them for any of the storage. You can get your tow, but you can't get the storage now because you didn't properly identify the vehicle and the owner and send out the correct notifications.
Just that little decoding feature is so nice. One, yeah, you verify the VIN's correct. 2, it pre-populates all the information in your system for you. At least it should. I think most dispatch softwares do that now. I know Tracker does. When you decode it, it pops up Chevy, Impala, Silver, all that kind of stuff. it'll tell you the features of the vehicle, 4-wheel drives, that kind of stuff sometimes. But it eliminates any room for error that could become a headache later. The driver, to his defense, he's busy, he's tired, whatever. He puts in Chevy Malibu when it's actually a Chevy Impala. So when that owner calls to get the charges, or they want to pick that vehicle up, and you're searching Malibu, that creates a headache. Just little stuff, silver and gray. Well, which one is it? Is it silver or is it gray? The stuff that can eliminate some headaches down the road. That I like to take human error out of the equation. If we can do everything we can to prevent human error, let the system do everything for us, then the better we're going to be.
We're going to talk a little about controlling costs to save money versus raising rates to increase income. What makes the bigger difference? What's the first thing you should focus on? Brad, what do you think?
Well, the answer is both. Controlling costs is obviously important.
Yep.
You've got to keep stuff from snowballing out of hand. You got to keep from paying unnecessary expenses, stuff you don't need, stuff you can find better deals on. All that's very, very important. And in an industry like this, which we mention all the time, where profit margin is pretty slim, every little penny like that helps. But cutting costs is not an operational management tool. It's not how you operate your business by, we're struggling, we better trim, we better get rid of buying coffee this month, or we better get rid of our uniforms or whatever. That's not how you operate business. If you're having to continually do that, something's wrong.
Yep. Now,
raising rates obviously is good, assuming it doesn't backfire. You have to do it the right way. It has to be justified. It can't be one day you're $100 hook rate and the next day you're $250. Like, people are probably going to have a problem with that. So it has to be, strategic. But the power in an industry like towing, where everything is a volume play, just think about what $1 does to your price. Let's say you run 10,000 services a year. That's $10,000 to the top line. So the power of $1 increments is huge. The power of not missing a mile. If the tow was actually 9 miles and you charge 8, you do that over the course of a year, that you're costing yourself a lot of money. So increasing rates is obviously important. Going back to controlling costs, I think it's more importantly, it's the mentality you have when you buy things or when you make decisions to enter into new contracts or new services, whatever. I think it's the mentality that you do that with that's more important. If you go into every deal or every purchase thinking, man, how many Agero calls is it going to take to pay this off? Or do we really, really need this? Am I going to regret this? Is this something I'm going to turn around in a couple months and try to get rid of? Do we truly, truly need this to operate? If you do that, you don't have to continually go back and cut costs and trim things. If you're always looking for the best deal that makes sense for your business, you don't have to go work backwards and try to cut costs. It's mainly more about how you spend it, not trying to save it later on. Save it by not spending it. But rates, that has the most impact on profit, cash flow, all that kind of thing. Unless you're just way out of whack on your expenses and you're so fat and inefficient that you're just blowing money here and there. Revenue and income based on your rates is going to be way more important.
And human nature just plays into it. When things are going great and there's money in that bank account, you tend to loosen up on those controls, and you really have to get it in your head to operate. Times are good, times are bad. Keep it in your head. I used to have a policy for the person that did the purchasing for our truck shop. I wanted I wanted 3 prices for parts on every part. And I'm not talking about on a gallon of oil. I'm talking about, a clutch, anything like that, larger costs. And God, that was pretty, there's a lot of time that went into that, but I felt like I needed to do that. Then I realized that we could accomplish the same thing a lot quicker if we developed strong relationships with a parts supplier, and that's what we've got now. And we've negotiated the markup on our parts to below what a local parts supplier has. We're getting it from a nationally known supplier, and the local guy that keeps trying to get my business, I'm paying less for parts than he's paying, and he's buying wholesale. And we're not that big, so it's not like we're this giant powerhouse and we're buying $1 million a year. But it's just that maybe go to lunch with the salesman of a place that you like, supplies quality parts. Go to lunch with them, explain to him what you're trying to accomplish, and that if I can be assured that you're going to stick to this markup on your parts when you sell them to me, so I know in most cases I'm getting the best cost. Maybe you're not going to get the best price on every part, but once you've got that relationship, you could get pretty comfortable knowing you're getting good deals. And now all of a sudden, your costs go down, and you're not having to call 3 people every time you need to buy something. So there's a lot of ways to get creative and get those costs down and control those costs.
Yeah, they would much rather get all of your business than occasionally be able to sell you a part when you've called around 4 places and they happen to be the cheapest. They'd much rather sell you everything and make a little smaller margin on every part versus a higher margin on one part a year. So don't be afraid to do that.
And there's another benefit that can be had. If that part supplier also works on trucks themselves, like a dealer, and you go in there and you do a sales pitch to try and get the service department's towing for their breakdowns.
There you go.
If somebody else is already doing that towing, I bet you one of the first things they look at is how many parts, what's the dollar amount of the parts that our current tower is buying from us versus this guy who wants our business. They're going to look at that because that matters a lot to them. And there's a pretty good chance if you're buying all your parts from that one place instead of doing that price shopping and going to 3, 4, 5 different places, there's a good chance that's going to win that service from that shop also. So now you're going to get towing out of the deal. So what's the value on that?
Just be smart though. If you've got 5 part suppliers or dealerships in your town and you're only buying from one, you're probably going to get the towing for that one, but you're probably not going to get the other 4. So you got to consider a little bit of everything there. Yep. But you can save yourself a lot of money and headache by getting a direct one-person deal like that for sure.
So what are some basic ways, these guys that are trying to figure out what to charge for their tows? Do you have any pointers, some quick basic ways without getting too complicated to start that process?
Yeah, like we mentioned, this could be an entire episode of its own. We could break down line by line of your financials and get a very, very narrowed down cost. But really, you can break it down pretty easily per hour or per call, basically. Obviously, you need to separate your light duty and your heavy duty and run those separately because those costs are going to be obviously way different. But if you take all direct labor and direct truck operating costs and divide by work hours, then that's your cost per hour. It's pretty generic and it's not going to be to the penny, but it'll at least open your eyes. Hey, I just ran this calculation and it shows that it cost me $48 an hour to run this flatbed, with the driver, the fuel, insurance, all that kind of stuff. And I'm running, let's just say an average light duty service. You got to factor everything if you do road service and towing. Average service takes me about an hour. and I'm getting paid $38 per service from XYZ Motor Club. There should be bells and whistles and all kinds of shit going off right then. Like, hey, this probably doesn't make sense. It's a very quick calculation, but at least get you in the ballpark to know either I'm close, I'm probably way off, one or the other. So you can do the same thing with calls. Your direct labor and direct operating costs divided by maybe use 2019 or maybe use the first half of 2020. I'm trying to forget 2020 ever happened, but go back at 2019 and take the total number of light duty tows or heavy duty, whatever you're running, and divide it by that. And that'll give you your cost per call. It's generic. It's simple. It's, like I said, not down to the penny accurate, but at least gives you an idea and a starting point. At least gives you a fighting chance to make a decision. Is this tow going to be profitable or not? My motor club rate is $40. I think my average cost, not talking profit built on top of cost. My cost is $38. Is it worth it to run $2? Because there's your profit margin is $2, and it's probably not even all profit. You got a lot of overhead in there too. So at least gives you a way to gauge and make some decisions.
So I spoke with a company owner a while back, and they had kind of a work your way back kind of system. And I've been to several industry seminars where a lot of people say your labor cost should be 40% or below. It just seems to be like that magic number a lot of people throw out. But you need to remember that that's not payroll. It's not what you're paying the driver. There's a lot more costs involved with employing that person. So you've got to build that in. So what this person was doing was they're saying, okay, 40% total labor costs on this stuff. My guys are on 30% commission. So when they were pricing calls and trying to figure out these what to charge, they would say, okay, I want my rollback drivers to make $18 an hour. And then they'd work backwards from that. Okay, let's make that $18 an hour 30%. And then they'd figure out, okay, there's going to be another nearly 10% on top of that. And then the other 60%, once you add that 60%, that's what I need to make on that call. So I make 60% for the company, the driver makes 30%, the other 10% goes to Uncle Sam, whoever. Maybe it goes to their medical coverage. But they'd work backwards like that. And I haven't done it in a while, but I used to just kind of play around with it. And their rates ended up, when they worked backwards that way, ended up pretty close to ours. And it was a similar size company, ran good trucks, all that good stuff. So there's ways to go about it. Whatever you figure out, whatever way you use, stick with it, because that's the only way you're going to be able to track stuff over time and stay on top of this stuff. So whatever system you choose to use to figure out what your rates should be, stick to it, because you're going to need to stay on that track so you can track that information for years to come. And obviously things change, how you run your business. You may change from commission to hourly, but in the end, you just make a couple adjustments and you should be able to stay in the ballpark of where you were to begin with.
And I will say, if you've never done this, one, I hope you start and I hope you try, but it's going to be alarming. It's going to scare the hell out of you when you do it the first time.
Yep.
It's not going to be what you think it is. And all of a sudden, some things are going to click and you're going to realize why you're not making money.
And you're going to realize that volume ain't going to change a damn thing.
If you have a pricing error, mistake, bad formula, volume makes it worse.
Oh.
It makes it way worse. Now, when you have a good price, volume makes things better, because let's say you make 10% on that call, then you do that 10,000 times, is obviously going to be pretty good. But if you are losing $1 on every call, then over those 10,000, you're going to lose 10,000. So volume is not everything. It is good if you're set up correctly, but if you're not, then it's very, very bad and it will kill you. Volume carries some companies and it kills companies. I will say, let's just say, this is kind of a question for you. Somebody goes through this for the first time, they figure out, whoa, I'm upside down. I'm charging less than my costs are. I need to be $25 higher. Do they go after that $25 all at once? Do they up their prices from day one tomorrow, 25, or do they work themselves back into it?
I would say that's a lot of that depends on just how bad things are when you figure that out. You watch these bar rescue shows and it's like, in 3 weeks, if we don't turn this around in 3 weeks, we're going to be out of business. If you can say, well, I need to start changing things over the next year, I might do it in increments. But when I look at raising rates, I like to bite off a big enough chunk to last me for a while. Because if I was a customer, I'd hate feeling like every time I turn around, these guys are raising my rates a little bit. I'd rather have the discussion, raise those rates to what they needed to be right now, and justify it. I mean, as long as if a customer calls up and says, "Hey, why'd this ticket go up?" I'm ready to explain to them why. And if they want us to continue being able to provide the service that they've become accustomed to, this is what's going to happen. Most of them understand rate increases. And I'm talking primarily commercial customers. They get it.
I mean, it happens in every aspect of our life.
Yeah.
Does your electricity bill go down or up every year? Does your, personal vehicle insurance go down or up? Does everything, your groceries, everything goes up? They should be used to it. But for some reason in this industry, it's like taboo to raise prices. I don't know why that is.
Well, I guess it's just so damn expensive anyhow. There's no reason. You only towed my car 2 miles. Why does it cost $125 to go 2 miles?
Well, the problem is that not enough people raise their rates. They operate the same rates for 20 years, and we've conditioned our customers to get used to that.
Yeah.
And to them, it is a big deal when you raise them because you haven't raised them in 20 years. We have to condition these people to get used to accepting these. We have to back it up.
Yeah.
We can't give shit service. We have to justify our rates.
Yeah.
But that was a question I had. How often do you consider raising rates? Annually? Through 2-3 years? Do you try to lock them in for a little while?
I look at them once a year. It doesn't mean I necessarily decide to go up on them once a year. Anybody who survived 2008, 2009, maybe you really wanted to go up on your rates, but man, that was not a good time to do it because everybody all of a sudden, especially these trucking companies, all of a sudden they were forced to look at price. They might have, it goes back to what I said before, when times are good, you tend to loosen your belt a little bit. They've got extra money to pay for better service. But maybe things are so slow, they don't have that money, and now they have to start shopping. I mean, a customer we had for 20 years was suddenly calling, asking for quotes. They went from late 2007 saying, "Hey, go get this for me. How quick can you get it?" Not even asking about cost. All of a sudden, and you talk to them about it, well, why are you doing this all of a sudden? Sorry, it came down from the top. We have to shop everything now. We have a little bit of leeway. But if somebody comes in at $250 and you're in at $450 on that job, I have no choice. I have to go with that person. So, the current economic situation definitely plays into it.
I mean, if you go back 5 years ago, ish, diesel was over $4 a gallon here in Ohio. That's obviously our operating costs and our profit is way different when fuel is, when you're spending well over $1 million, 1.5 million in fuel every year, the cost of going up or down $2 a gallon is huge. So our operating costs are way different. So, you have to let economic conditions play into it. let's just say fuel is down 40% this year over last year. That's a huge savings to us. Maybe we don't need to raise rates next year. Maybe keeping that rate will actually make more money just off the play of what fuel is doing. We had a good renewal. We had some things. We trimmed some unnecessary expenses, whatever, and we're operating at a higher profit margin. Hey, keep your rates, unless you just want to raise them. But if you don't need to, don't.
You know what boggles my mind, and I hear this out of guys. Let's say they do a 50-mile tow to the north side of Atlanta. And then someone calls that happens to need something pulled back from the north side. They're going to be up there anyhow. And then you hear something along the lines of, yeah, I gave them a break because I was already there. They don't know you were already there.
Mm-hmm.
You just take the call and run your rates. That should be a home run for you. That should be added profit.
We get screwed so many times. When you actually have the chance to hit a home run, hit it.
Yeah.
Don't overcharge. I'm not talking about gouging, but when you are going to have less expense involved in the call, hey, it's a good day.
Good for you. It's your lucky day. But I'm gonna pass my profit on to my customer. Don't do that.
Because then they expect it.
Yeah. So what comes up, and then you start getting them calling if it's a regular customer. Hey, you happen to have anybody in the area? And if you say yes, guess what they're looking for?
Mm-hmm.
They're looking to not pay you as much as you need. So what goes hand in hand with this, and this drives me insane. So many things drive me insane. I should stop using that phrase because everything seems to drive me insane. But the true cost of freebies, back 30 years ago, if you got a dealership or a large automotive shop, that was what you wanted. This was before the motor clubs took over the warranty work for the dealerships and all that stuff. They always expected towbacks. I call them towbacks. They go out on a test drive or a customer picks up a car they just worked on and it breaks down. For some reason, even though it's probably due to their shoddy work, you're supposed to, for some reason, incur the cost of bringing that truck back in or car back in. Because obviously they can't charge the customer this time. They were able to charge the customer the first time. And I bet if you charged that shop $65, I bet they charged the customer $110. So they just made a killing on the first tow. But then when they don't fix it properly or something goes wrong, all of a sudden you're supposed to eat it because they can't charge the customer this time. Doesn't matter. They never look back at the first tow and say, man, we killed it, man. Okay, we got some money left over. We can pay to tow this thing back in. So guys seem to think, and girls, anybody in this industry, has seen this situation before. We need you to tow this one back in. Hey, man, I really need a favor this time. Can you do this one? Can this be on you? And you feel inclined because in their mind, I'm giving this guy 30, 40 tows a month. He owes me. Well, you don't owe him, but let's just say, just throwing numbers out there. If you typically charge that shop $60 for in-town tows, and it costs you $50 to do those in-town tows, you're making $10 a tow. So are you giving one job away for free, or are you giving the next 5 jobs away for free? Actually 6 jobs, because you've got costs involved with that freebie too. But to make back the money you lost in expenses on that freebie, you're going to have to do another 5 to 6 tows to make that money back. You didn't do one free tow for that person. So stop doing it. Just please stop doing that free stuff. Free is bad. It's always bad for us. Now, if you want to go in and say, okay, if there's a problem like that, I'll do 2 tows a month for you at a 20% discount. Give them some sort of break, loyalty thing, make them feel good, but don't go below your cost on that deal. Make sure if you're going to give them those 2 tows a month, and let's base it on call volume. If you're going to give me 50 calls a month, for every 50 calls a month you give me that pay full price, I'll give you 2 at a discount if you need them. Don't go below your cost on those calls. Don't don't lose the profit on the next 5 calls because you want to give them one completely free tow.
And like you said, in the not so recent past, those dealerships held the cards. They're the ones that called in the services. They held the roadside, the warranty work. They decided that. They called you. That's not how it works anymore.
No.
We still have one dealer here local that does it, that still handles that. It's a luxury car. They still handle that directly. We still get a lot of tows from them directly. But I mean, we're still towing the same amount of cars into these other dealerships, but how we get them and what we're getting paid is not the same by any stretch of the imagination. It's not even close. They're all coming through the motor clubs. So why do you have to have that loyalty? Why do you have, these are long-standing relationships maybe, but you need to have that conversation. Say, hey, look, we appreciate, the relationship, the 20 years we've towed for you, but obviously this thing has changed. The way this works has changed. Here's what we're getting paid now. They probably have no idea what you're getting paid from XYZ Motor Club. They probably don't know. They'd probably be, they might be mad that you charged them whatever for the past 20 years. That's more than you're getting paid now, but that's another story. But they'd probably be very surprised if you told them that. Now, you might not need to do that, but you need to have that conversation. Like, look, nothing's free here, man. Our insurance has gone up 300% in the past 5 years. A new flatbed costs over $100,000. Our employees now make X amount per hour. The times have changed, and we've got to change this relationship. We will still give you the best service possible. Like you just said, we'll cut you some sort of sweetheart deal on a couple of tows a month or something, but you can't afford to do anything for free. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Brad, you wanted to talk a little bit about add-on fees.
Yeah, just real quick to kind of finish off this conversation on pricing and invoicing. I see a lot of fees trickle through. I see a lot of receipts from other companies and things like that. So I have to wonder what people are charging all these fees for. I'm not saying I'm against all the fees. I'm not, but when you have 6 different fees, then I start to wonder. Admin fee, processing fee, invoice. I have seen, this is no joke. I forget how they worded it, but it was on a heavy recovery bill. They called it like the owner's bill writing fee or something as shitty as that sound. That's really what they called it. And they charged for the owner's time to write the bill, and that's what they called it on top of all these other fees. But specifically talking about, even just a lighter heavy duty tow, I still see a lot of fuel surcharges and admin fees both. I'm not saying I'm against it, but I don't personally believe in those. When fuel was $4 or $5 a gallon, my stance on a fuel surcharge changed because that's an abnormal situation. Now, I do have a problem if you charge, when fuel gets that high and you implement a fuel surcharge. I'm fine with that. But I have a problem when you don't get rid of it or you don't change it when fuel goes back down to $2. That's a little skeptical to me. You needed that 10% fuel surcharge when it was $5, but you still need it when it's $2. That's probably not fair to the customer. But I don't get the fee. If you're charging right, I don't get all these fees. I mean, maybe you disagree, but I feel like if your prices are right, what you're charging, you don't need to nickel and dime these people to death. Because there's nothing I hate worse, no matter what it is, getting a quote for something, even if it's just something for my house or for anything, a new whatever. Say, it's going to be this. And you show up, you buy it, you pay for it, and it's that price plus this fee, this fee, this fee, this fee, this fee, this fee. Like, well, that's not what it is. Like a hotel. It drives me nuts booking a hotel. $129 a night. Awesome. Good. Let's do it. And all of a sudden, the next thing you know, it's like $240 a night.
Yeah.
We got local entertainment tax, this fee, fucking dirty sheet fee, and all this other stuff that adds up. You're like, what? This is how can you price shop when you have all this stuff? So just think about that from the customer standpoint. Seeing all those fees probably drives them nuts. But if it works for you and your business and your customers are okay with it, then by all means. I just didn't know your stance on that.
But wait, there's more. We'll
Yeah.
double your tow for a separate fee.
$50 hook for 5 miles, and all of a sudden a 4-mile tow is $222.
I'm with you, except for one circumstance. We know we have to get to a certain amount of money per call somehow. And when a police department has the rates set really low on the tow, sometimes some add-on fees might get you to where you truly need to be. If they're allowed. I mean, I see now we're allowed a certain amount of admin under our local contracts, but I've seen people add on all sorts of other things. And I think if you do it ethically and you're not just throwing them on to throw them on, if like I see a lot of police departments, they want to look good to the people getting towed if that's possible. Hey, we limit fees for the impound to $150. Well, to provide a truck 24/7 within 20 minutes of being on scene, that's very expensive. That's more expensive than just providing regular tows for John Q. Public. So you've got to get a little more to be able to maintain that readiness and availability. So a lot of times, a lot of people I see, okay, we can't charge more for the actual tow, but we do need to squeeze another $20 out of every call. So maybe something on the yard, debris management, debris disposal, something like that. If you've got to squeeze that little bit out and it's allowed under the contract you're on, don't do anything shady. Don't try to sneak anything through. But sometimes if you need to look at it as, okay, they regulated the tow, but once we get to the yard, things change. And that's where we're allowed like the admin fee on our contracts here in Georgia. The admin fees are primarily to cover the costs of processing the vehicles under our abandoned vehicle law that we've got here.
But those are justified.
Yeah.
Those are fees for a reason because there was other circumstances involved. I'm just talking about a tire change. You show up, change a tire, you've got the service charge,
okay,
and an admin fee and whatever else.
Okay, so in that case, what does drive me nuts is when a customer, okay, we don't have to start our abandoned vehicle processing for 2-3 days. There's a time frame there where you're not doing anything yet other than an electronic VIN check for owner and lien holder information. But you've got guys that are, the second the thing hits the yard, they're throwing a $60 admin fee on there. If you're picking the car up 10 minutes after it hit their yard, there's no costs associated with that to justify that admin fee. You're just throwing an admin fee onto every call just to add an admin fee to every call. And you're not providing anything. You're not providing any administrative services, but you're charging for them. So that drives me nuts. And I hear it out of a lot of insurance adjusters that come in. They're constantly questioning that stuff from other companies. How come it's on this? You're all running under the same PD contract, but every invoice from so-and-so is $50 more than everybody else's invoice. And that's what it is. It's because they're lumping all those fees on the second the thing hits the yard instead of adding them as you go through the processes. So we do see that a lot around here.
Yeah, the justified expenses are fine. You need paid those fees, disposal, the processing. Obviously, processing is not free. As awesome as ADD and these other places are, they're not free. We have charges that we incur. So I'm fine. I'm all for that. It's the unjustified fees I have a problem with. Anyway, that was a long rant about nothing. Unless you have anything else to wrap up on that, let's get into recovery billing.
No, we'll do the recovery billing. I really want to start off real quick with photos. And now we're getting into drone footage on some wrecks. Do you believe that's something you charge for, or is that simply a tool to help you get paid quicker?
Are you asking me?
I am.
I personally do not think you charge for them. I think that's part of your documentation to help support your bill and to ensure you get paid.
So when we first started out, I was charging for photos. I was like, well, we need photos to get paid. Somebody's got to take the photos. Someone has to have the camera equipment. It should be a fee. There should be a fee. But I started noticing really quick, the first red flag, the first thing to trigger a truck owner or an insurance company wanting to argue about rates was that damn photography fee. It just made so much sense to drop it. It was an insignificant amount of money, but it was a giant red flag whipping around in front of their face when they started working through the bill. I know they get us paid a lot quicker. I know it justifies fees. I mean, you shouldn't be taking photos of how good you are out on the wreck scene. You should be photo documenting what you did. You should be able to lay out all your photos or scroll through them, and they should tell a story. They should tell exactly what you did, what you used, who you used, and everything that was done out on that scene. You should be able to pretty much write an invoice through the story you can tell with the photos you took out there.
Yeah, I mean, that adjuster's not there. The person you're talking to 2 or 3 days later, they were not there. They don't know that all they know is, let's just say it was a rollover, that a tractor trailer was laid on its side. They don't know that it was down an embankment. They don't know that there was no shoulder. You had to, whatever. You have to set the scene and make them understand why it took X amount of hours, X amount of trucks, X amount of other specialty equipment. You have to paint that picture for them, or they're going to fight you on it.
So, now that we're getting into drone footage, the drones aren't cheap. For a decent setup, you're looking at least $1,000. And that's kind of going to take more of a dedicated person out on scene to do that. You can't just walk around snapping photos. You've got to launch it. You've got to make sure you're in a place where you can launch it legally. There's a lot that comes into it. And whether or not you can charge for that, the first question is, do you have your Part 107 FAA certification to charge for that stuff? If you're going to do anything commercially with a drone, you better make sure you've got your certifications in order. And if you're wondering, that is FAA Part 107. And I just went through the training course for that. I haven't taken my test yet. Holy cow, that made my brain hurt for about a week working through that online course. It's definitely a huge hurdle. So, if you want to just jump up, take a couple photos for yourself, maybe use them in-house as training. You're even supposed to have your 107 for that. But do not try charging for anything if you do not have that commercial drone license. Again, to me, it gives a better perspective. You're seeing stuff from the sky. But we worked a wreck. It was 2 trucks. In the infinite wisdom of our local department, they call out a separate company for every vehicle involved. So we ended up working one wreck with another company, and I was shooting drone footage, and right after the wreck, I was asked, how much do you get for that? What do you charge for those drone photos? I've got a drone. Nothing. Not charging anything, but damn it, if they have questions, I can definitely answer them now, and I can answer them with photos that show everything. One picture that shows every piece of equipment, every person we've got on scene, with one photo from the sky. And that will go a long way, but I'm not on board with charging for that stuff. If your other fees are are where they need to be. You don't need to be charging for photos, my opinion.
It's kind of like charging for the pen that you use to write the bill. Like to some
Yeah.
degree, there's certain things that are just involved in the cost of doing business and getting paid.
So when it comes to writing invoices for large recs, I see, every once in a while we don't provide this service for anybody, but when you have relationships with local adjusters, from time to time, you're going to see someone else's invoice. They're going to show you one they have questions for. Here's how I handle that. And I'm going to explain this in a minute. Why? If it looks like a good, solid invoice, I don't care if it's the guy next to me that I fight with every day. If it looks like a good, solid, well-written invoice, I'm going to say that's a good invoice. You need to pay this guy. If I'm shown one that's questionable, I'm going to use the old, you know what? I wasn't there. It's hard to say, man. I just don't know. I've got to trust that this is legitimate. I'm going to trust the guy this time because I have no reason not to. So, but my point is, most of us that play in this arena with the large truck crashes, we are exposed to other people's invoices, locally, across the country, whatever. And a lot of them are very disappointing. A lot of them are handwritten. I saw one within the past probably 7 or 8 years that was handwritten on a piece of lined notebook paper. It was torn out of a freaking spiral binder.
At least it was lined.
Who does that? I've seen another one. I saw two. Well, it was one invoice for 2 different wrecks. I saw one company write an invoice, and they worked another wreck a couple weeks later, and they just changed the truck info. It was on the same exit ramp. Nothing applied to the second wreck. They never wrote a second invoice that applied to that second wreck. And I'm sure they never saw this coming, but both those invoices ended up on the desk of the same adjuster. And he looked at him. He was like, what the heck? What? Wait a minute. They charged for a dump truck rental on this one. They didn't even have a dump truck on the other one, or at least they don't have a photo showing a dump truck on the other one. And this caused major problems, complaints with the PD who called them out there. I mean, it's years later, it still is causing issues for that one company that they did that. Don't do that. Sit down and write an invoice for that wreck. Do not try that stuff. I've seen a dump truck that was used for debris removal, burning debris removal that was still smoking. Put in that dump truck, it goes to go down the road, the debris catches on fire. The bed of the dump truck ends up having to be repainted. I saw the cost of repainting that rented dump truck on the customer's invoice.
Oof.
I've seen broken rigging, broken snatch blocks charged for. Now, if you're in a situation where that stuff is damaged because of the nature of the cargo or
Sure.
the casualty, sometimes you have to sacrifice some rigging. And that's the only way I know how to put it. If you've got something that's got hot tar all over it, a spilled tanker with a leak, and you've got chains and straps that ended up getting that stuff on it, that stuff needs to be replaced. I understand charging out on that stuff.
Right.
But if you overloaded a line, you overloaded a snatch block and it broke, you can't charge for that. That's your fault. You need to attend a few more classes, or at least start applying what you've learned in previous training classes. But when it comes down to building, and I say building an invoice because you should be putting time, thought, and effort into building a solid invoice for these wrecks. You're asking someone who you don't know, you have no relationship with whatsoever, that they're in the middle of a really bad situation. You need to build that invoice properly. And I believe that starts with a narrative. I think you need to really explain something that runs side by side with the photos that you've got, explaining what was done, who called you, when they called you, when you arrived on scene, what you saw, what the recovery plan was you came up with incident command, whether it's fire, PD, DOT. You should mention all those people, because hopefully you're getting out there and you're having a discussion with those people on scene, so everybody's on board and understand what's going to take place. Something that I also like to add into the narratives after I tell the story and you see the outcome, and it finishes it up with where you took everything and why and all that good stuff. I like to put weather conditions, whether the roadway was wet or dry. If it was really cold out, I like putting that. If it's really hot out, I put that out. Not because I'm charging more for those conditions, but I want to paint a clear picture. And, there's a well-known class out there that tells you you need to be prepared for litigation. You need this stuff from the start. You need everything written properly from the beginning. That invoice needs to be written properly from the beginning, because every once in a while you're going to end up in a battle. And if you start adding, once that starts, that argument starts between you and the truck owner, the insurance company, that's not the time to start adding stuff to your narrative. That's not the time to start describing things or suddenly coming up with photos that you said a month ago that you didn't have. So I like to finish up with all that stuff. Just really, what kind of conditions were we dealing with? Was it down a steep bank? Was there frosty grass up and down this steep bank? Is there a reason? Did you leave it there overnight? Did you leave a traffic control truck parked on the shoulder with that truck down in the ditch because you thought it was a lot safer to come back in the day? You need to put that on there. You can't just put traffic control 8 hours and then you started 8 hours later on the actual recovery. Do yourself a favor. Avoid that argument by explaining that right in the beginning. So put some time into that narrative. Please, we mentioned it earlier, please use Grammarly, spell check, whatever. You don't want this thing to go to some, run up the pole at some insurance company and they look at this thing like, holy cow, this guy's illiterate. Maybe we can get one over on this guy. You don't want them to be able to identify any weakness where they can go after, because they'll exploit that stuff. If you can't write a good sentence and a good paragraph, good narrative, explaining things clearly, it's going to hurt you in the end. So put some time into it. We routinely, whoever writes a rec invoice, when we finish it in the system, just to make sure, we'll note it in the system. This invoice is not complete. It's up for review. So anybody, if an insurance company says, hey, we've got 2 locations, if they call the other location and say, hey, I need a copy of this invoice, the person who answered the phone can bring that invoice up in the system. Another benefit of not using paper. They can look it up and there's the notes. Hey, this isn't complete yet. Give me your email. We'll send it to you once it is. And then we'll have a second person review it. A lot of times, if I'm not on scene for that wreck, the person I'm going to have review my invoice that I wrote with info given to me by everybody out there and the photos. I'm going to write that invoice and I'm going to put it in front of somebody who was out there, and they're going to read through it and they're going to make sure everything's accurate. When it comes to line items and line item order, I like to start at the top. I like to start with the largest fees. The rotator comes first, the 50 tons after that, and work my way down. I want to group everything together. So the recovery trucks all come line after line after line at the top. And then you get into, did you have a support truck out there, skid steer operator, sweeper? I really believe that if you're going to charge for the skid steer and then you're going to charge for the sweeper, I think that sweeper charge should go directly under the skid steer. Keep everything grouped together, have it make sense, have your line items flow and trickle from the top to the bottom. I just think it looks more professional. It's neater. It just goes a long way. If they're not seeing red flags left and right, you're not going to have as many problems. Do you offer any kind of quick pay incentive right off the bat? Some people do, some people don't. Some people, a lot of insurance companies call up after the fact and say, man, what can you do for me? Man, I'll write you a check. I'll overnight you a check if you can just give me a little bit of a break on there. Well, a very inexpensive break that can really help things. They just had a major wreck. It's going to be a few days to a week to 10 days where everybody gets their stuff in order. They get statements from everybody. They're gathering info, all this stuff. Why not say, hey, if everything's off my property and paid out in full within 10 days, we'll waive the storage fees. Something like that. Throw them a bone right off the bat. I like to do that. I know a lot of people don't like to do that, but that's just something that I feel works really well for us. I get a lot of thank yous. I get a lot of, I've never seen that before. And it just starts that conversation with that adjuster, helping to get things paid. So if you're willing to do that, maybe throw it up there in front. It's not a significant loss to give them a few days of storage on there.
Yeah, I don't mind coming off some storage. I don't have labor involved in storage necessarily.
Right.
To me, that's almost a gimme. I don't mind coming off a little bit of storage, assuming everything's situational, but who the insurance company is, how this whole wreck has come about. Has the whole thing been sketchy? Has the whole thing been pretty legit? Is there coverage on everything? Load, cargo, trailer, truck, everything have coverage. There's a lot that goes into it, but yeah, I'll come off some storage to get paid.
Sure. One last thing I'd like to, unless you've got something else, something I want to just wrap up with, is who do you provide the invoices and photos to? It's not unusual to have 5, 6, 7 different people calling up after a wreck wanting these photos. So some of those people could very possibly be someone you don't want to necessarily see this invoice. We know there's some third-party invoice auditors out there. They'll call up, they'll misrepresent who they are and who they're working for, and they just want to see your bill. And they might see this bill and say, boy, I can chip away at this thing real easy. And then they'll contact the trucking company or the insurance company and say, hey, give me a percentage. If I can save you $5,000, give me $2,000 of it. Something like that. So be very careful of who you provide this stuff to. And a good way to do that is while the wreck's going on or when the wreck's on its way to your yard, make contact with that trucking company and ask them for 2 or 3 key people that it's okay, that they need you to provide these invoices and photos to. And when other people start calling up and asking for them, no, if you get that trucking company owner to call me and say it's okay, or better yet, if you're truly working for them, how about you call them for it? Because they've already had it in their hands for 3-4 days. So that's kind of a red flag to me. If they show up a week later wanting copies of this stuff, why don't you have it already? If you're working for that person, why don't you already have all this info I provided to them already? You can probably save yourself a lot of headaches by limiting who you distribute that information to.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. At most, there's 3 people paying the bill, probably. At most, truck, trailer, cargo. So at most, there's 3 people that should probably see it. So yeah, deal directly, make contact, ask for, at the time, you probably have a driver on scene. Hopefully they're not injured and you can talk to them. Say, hey, who am I dealing with at your company? You get the fleet manager, the safety manager, the owner, whoever, and you can develop, that communication, and they'll tell you who their insurance company is. If they don't know that, then that's a red flag. But they should know who is going to be reaching out. It's Great West, it's whoever, and you can do that because you don't want to get screwed. There's too much at stake here.
Yeah. Well, that is our rec invoice discussion in a nutshell. Again, so many of the things we discussed here can be and probably will end up being their own show where we go into greater detail. But we just wanted to have a nice, interesting conversation for the show. And just me and Brad. It's pretty rare that we don't have a guest on, so I enjoyed this. But we will be back soon with another episode. Thank you.
Thanks.
You've been listening to the Toe Business Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it 5 stars and go back to listen to previous episodes. Also, make sure you subscribe to the podcast and like us on social media. If you have a suggestion or question for the show, please email us at info@toebusinesspodcast.com or send us a message on social media. And remember, there's no business like toe business.